وعد الله الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات منهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما.
The principles of the religion are important to know. Anything beyond the principles come under a grey area, and the grey area is debatable. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, once again we're here, we gathered for the sake of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Khair, inshallah, I said we're going to start the fiqh of dressing styles. This is a very, very, very important topic actually, because it's very relevant to our day to day. So we're going to look at things like what's considered to be the nakedness of the man and the woman, who you can expose yourself to, who you can't. If you have sisters at home, for example, you have mothers at home, for example, what body parts of theirs can you see and touch, for example? What can they expose, what can they not expose? And then even like just general wear that you have, how are you supposed to dress as a Muslim? Because there's not necessarily a Muslim dressed per se. Dress, generally speaking, was always according to the custom of the time. So in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he dressed in a specific way which was according to the custom of the Arabs. So the custom basically means what generally they would wear. So people say like the jubba, the thobe is an Islamic type of clothing. That's not the case. Wait, it's not Islamic. Does it fulfill Islamic principles? Yes, because Islamic principles are quite simple. Islamic principles are, it has to cover from the navel to the knee for a man, and it has to be respectful. But so does a trousers and a shirt, right? But then respectful will also extend to that which is seen to be acceptable. So if you're living in a time where trousers and a shirt, or you were living in a time where trousers and a shirt was not seen to be acceptable, or it was associated to a different time or a different type of people, then wearing a trouser and a shirt would be considered to be haram. For example, 100 years ago in India, at the time, if you went to the mosque with a trouser and a shirt on, people would say, what the heck are you wearing? This is the libas of the kafir. This is the dress of a disbeliever. Because it was only associated, that type of dress was only ever associated to the disbelievers. I.e., at the time, people who would wear like a trouser and a shirt would only be from a different country, and that country was a non-believing country. Are you following, yeah? So generally when it comes to these type of issues, they all are on the basis of something we call something which is called as urf. And urf basically means the custom of the people. And the custom of the people is very important, because when Allah Almighty commands you to do good, He doesn't use tayyib. Allah doesn't say wa'mur bil tayyib. Allah says wa'mur bil urf. Khudh al-'af wa'mur bil urf wa'a'rid 'anil jahilin. And the command for a believer is to do what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to enjoin with the good and forbid the evil. So that's called amr bil ma'ruf, not amr bil tayyib. There's a difference. Okay, so amr bil ma'ruf is enjoining with the good. The good means that which is recognized to be good within the society and what the people are doing. Right? Now, there are certain things which are beyond principles, which aren't considered to be good in any society. And even if a society considers them to be good, we won't consider them good because Allah has said they're not good. Let me give you a simple example. If everybody in society is doing something which becomes haram, for example, they're drinking alcohol, and that becomes a good thing, then for us that's not good still, because Allah has said it's not good. However, if everyone in society is doing a particular thing, and that thing becomes normalized, so long as the thing is not explicitly haram, that thing will come under what is considered to be good. And a lot of rulings in the religion are based upon that which is ma'ruf. For example, the dealings between a husband and a wife, As an example, the dealings between a husband and a wife, what a wife is supposed to do and what a husband is supposed to do, a lot of it is down to what is ma'ruf, what is considered to be accepted within society. So that would actually be different in different times. So when people say a scholar in the 10th century said that a woman should do this, that was in that time. And that may have been considered good in that time. But for us, we have to go with what is considered to be good now, what are the norms now. So for example, before we move on to the actual topic at hand, you have to understand the principle. If it's normal and it's completely normalized for women to work, yeah, for women to actually work and earn, technically, if they're not contradicting core principles of Sharia, i.e. they're working in a safe environment, they're not exposing the aura, it's not affecting their religion, etc., etc. And every woman in every household starts to work, that will become the norm, and that will then be preached, that will be the accepted thing. And that will then be expected too, for the woman to work. Because that's what now is ma'ruf. And it's going to be a little bit technical, but you have to understand how this religion works. This religion is that certain things aren't given hard rules to. So when it comes to general mu'amalat like dress, what haircuts you're gonna have, all that kind of stuff, really just comes down to what is ma'ruf, what is known to be good within the society. Are you following? Yeah. And then who establishes ma'ruf? Who establishes that which is good? Okay. Ultimately, the main establishment is done by Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the clear-cut things. Now you see, Allah doesn't explicitly mention every small nitty-gritty in detail. He doesn't need to. This is why we say the principles of the religion are important to know. Anything beyond the principles come under a grey area, and the grey area is debatable. For example, can you wear a pink shirt? If a guy wore a pink shirt today, is there anything wrong with that? Be honest. What do you think? No. Like people wear suits and they have a pink shirt and everything. Yeah. That's not considered to be a problem anymore because that's kind of like a fashion now. I don't know where it started. Scarface maybe, I don't know. I don't even think he wore a pink shirt. I don't know where it started, yeah? But now in this society, wearing a pink shirt is actually considered to be acceptable for men, even though pink is generally a feminine colour. Again, let's roll back 50 to 100 years in a different country. If a man wore a pink shirt, that would be haram for him because that's replicating the female. Here now, the pink shirt has become a norm. Since it's become a norm, technically now the permissibility of that, or the level of permissibility becomes lighter upon a person, meaning it becomes permissible for a person. But the point is that these things, dress styles, type of clothing, type of haircuts, all of this kind of stuff then will be dependent upon the norms of the society, so long as the norms don't contradict the principles of the religion. Do you understand this is how the general foundation is set? So now we're going to go through what Allah and His Messenger ﷺ tell us in regards to the core principles. So the core principles are that the man has to cover his awra and the woman has to cover her awra. Now awra, as you can see here, means nakedness. So the covering of one's awra is of utmost importance for both a male and female in Islam. Thus the Quran and Sunnah have laid a great emphasis with regards to this. So at the very bare minimum, the awra has to be covered. Everything else is built upon that, and each culture will bring its own style in. Yeah? We also see various books of fiqh, like Islamic jurisprudence, discussing the issues relating to the awra for both the male and female in great detail, because depending on where you are, can I cover this, can I not cover this, these things will be discussed. So awra, right, and the plural of awra is awrat, it literally means to be a hidden place. Because certain things within the body have to be hidden. To the point where certain things in the body have to even be hidden from yourself. Can you, if you're on your own, can you walk around naked?
No.
Technically speaking, it won't be haram. However, it would be very inappropriate to do even for yourself to walk around naked. Or to walk around showing your nakedness. Now what is your nakedness? That's the thing. People think the nakedness is just the genitalia, the private parts. It's not. There's more of a criteria to what your nakedness is. So if you're walking around at home with shorts on, like very, very short shorts, right, then that's a problem. But Ustad, I'm on my own. It doesn't matter if you're on your own. Because the religion is now commanding you that this should be covered at all times, with the exception of a necessity. And a necessity would mean you're going to the toilet, for example. Obviously, you have to, take your underwear off, or whatever, or you're cohabitating, etc. If you're married, right? Other than that, you do not expose this area. Then a person may ask, well, can I go to sleep in my boxers, for example? Yes, as long as you're covered with a duvet. If you're not covered with a duvet, you shouldn't be out in the open with these areas exposed. This is from Islam. And the thing is, people are like, oh, it's minor. Who can see me anyway? But this is the whole point. True ihsan is what? أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. That you're worshipping Allah as if you can see Him. فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ. And if you can't see Him, know that He's seeing you. فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. So regardless of whether people are in front of you or not, now you have to maintain that level of rule, that adab, that respect, that ihsan, that excellence, that even though I'm on my own at home, I can't just be walking around with, my genitalia sticking out. And you can't do that. It would be considered to be inappropriate, even Islamically. Yeah? So we have to know then what are the rules. So for the male it's quite simple, but for the female it's different. So for the female it would vary depending on where they are. So we'll start with the aura of the woman. Now again, for the brothers here, this isn't so relevant in the sense that it's not applicable to you directly, but then it can be, because everyone has sisters, or mothers of course, or spouses. So on that basis now, you have to go home, and if your wife or your sister is walking around the house in a particular way, and now you've studied that this is not the correct way, you're going to have to tell her. Yeah, this is why we're studying, this is why it's important. So the aura for the woman has to be studied first. The aura for the man is quite simple actually. For the man it's very simple. Just able to knee, that's it. The man, then he has to come in able to knee. Which now, by the way, is also a problem, because men don't come in able to knee anymore. Right? Men are like, even in the summer, people are wearing shorts, and it's like considered to be completely fine. And that is now considered the norm. That type of norm is impermissible. Now, yeah, there is a debate on the knee, in which part, whether you can expose the knee or not. Because some madhabs, some schools of thought will say, no, the knee has to be covered. Like the Hanafi school says the knee has to be covered. Whereas other schools will say the knee doesn't have to be covered. So on that basis, you'd have to look at, okay, since there's a difference of opinion, we'll take it easy on some people. But brother, if your thigh's out, yeah, your full thighs are showing, then that's a problem. So then, like when you go swimming and things like that, what type of shorts are you wearing? Is it even permissible to go swimming? You know, all of these rulings will be related to that. Can I go, for example, to regen therapy? He's not here today. Look, yeah, and get like a full body massage, a deep tissue massage. Am I not going to be exposing? What's the first thing that Cliff says he tells you to do? Yeah, get into your underwear. But hold on a second, that's not allowed though? What's the ruling for that then? What's the ruling for him? He should have been here by then. We'll talk about all of that. But the point is that there's certain parameters you have to understand, certain rules you have to understand, certain laws that are in place. All of this then becomes important. So people think, oh, I don't have to study, it's common sense. A lot of it is common sense. But there's certain rules that need to be known. So let's start off with the aura of a woman, and then we'll break it down. Aura of a woman. So the woman's aura, the woman's nakedness splits into two. So you have a woman's nakedness, a woman's aura inside of prayer and outside of prayer. Now inside of prayer is very clear. When the woman's praying, she has to do what? She has to cover what? What she has to cover?
Everything.
Good. Everything with the exceptions of the hands, the face, the feet are disputed within the tradition. And I'm giving you a broad perspective here. In the Hanafi school, according to what we generally follow, the woman can uncover her feet. However, in other schools, they say the woman should also cover her feet. So out of respect for that, if a woman has the opportunity, she should still cover her feet, out of respect for a difference of opinion. But if a woman had her feet uncovered, it's fine. Now, again, what's the reason for the woman's awrah being covered? Inside her prayer is one thing, right? She's probably going to be praying on her own, nobody's going to be there. But generally speaking, the reason why the awrah should be covered or uncovered, of course, covered in our case here is because it would be a detriment to other people. Yeah, it would be a detriment to other people. But then there's certain things which are, you can't really, certain things which will become very difficult, so the religion gives a leeway for that. I'll give you an example. You know this chin part, for a woman, the bottom of the neck, up to the bottom of the chin. The face is what? Within the religion, what is the face? Do you know when you say we have to do wudu, what do we say? From what? Hairline to?
Chin.
Chin, innit? The chin's there. Do you know this part here? Is that a part of the face? No. So now technically speaking, if the woman's awrah is everything except the hands, face and feet, she has to also cover this part. Yeah? But then the religion understands that that would be difficult for a woman to cover all the way up to there. Now you might find some women that are really strict with it and actually like cover up to there, like literally they have something over their chins. You'll probably see it in other countries. But it's unanimous, the scholars have all agreed that no, it's fine. These things are excused. So the bottom of the chin is excused. Because it'll be too difficult. So the religion, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah wants ease for you, there's not a difficulty for you. But now, the face, okay, can be uncovered. But the face is attractive. Right? The face is attractive. But it would be inconvenient. So what's the reason for a woman covering? Because generally men can get attracted to it. And if man gets attracted to every other woman, it could potentially cause what? Corruption in society. Because it would lead to, eventually, long term, it would lead to zina, rife zina. And zina eventually leads to what? A destruction of lineage. 5 things need to be preserved in this religion. What? Deen, life, intellect, lineage, and wealth. So all of your major sins are revolving around these 5 things. So anything, all rulings will be based around these 5 things. Like all major sins are based around these 5 things. So now, if a woman didn't cover, and now we're living in a society where women don't cover, what would happen? Men, with the way they've been created, right, would end up taking a false opportunity, which they shouldn't, because for them, they should lower their gaze. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. They should cover and protect their private parts. But what will men end up doing? Men will end up committing zina, okay, because not every man has the self-control. Should they have the self-control? Yeah, we're not promoting or encouraging that men should do this. But why then? We have to understand the wisdom behind why a woman has to cover. So if your sister tomorrow or your wife tomorrow says, "Oh, I don't want to wear the hijab," you don't just say, "Oh," because one of the things is wear the hijab because Allah has said so. That's one thing. But you also have to give them the understanding and the reason for why. So the reason is, if women just walked out semi-naked, half-naked, which unfortunately in this society they do, we are so numb to it, by the way. We are incredibly numb to it. Now, like for example, I'll give you an example. One of my uncles came from Pakistan once, yeah, and I don't have much family here. So he came from Pakistan, and in Pakistan they don't see that type of nudity. Generally speaking, if they need to see it, they'll probably see it on their phones. They'll probably see it a lot on their phones. Pakistan messed up. Yeah, but anyway, so they on a day-to-day basis on the roads, they don't see this. Anyway, what my uncle and we were going through town. I think it was botanical gardens or whatever, and his eyes just doing this. And I'm like, Mamaji, what are you doing? He's like, hi, Nambiyan Godiyan. Right? Now, for him, it's gonna have an effect on him because he's not exposed to it. We've grown up seeing Nambiyan Godiyan. So for us, unfortunately, we become numb to it. But it doesn't change the ruling though. It doesn't change the ruling. So why does a woman then need to cover herself? It's because the nature of men is that we're gonna look. And if you don't look, either you're mashallah or you're astaghfirullah, you're swinging the other way, innit? Yeah? Because what else is it? Why are you not going to look? You're a man at the end of the day, you're going to look. So therefore, the command is for women to cover. So they have to cover that. So they have to cover that part, which of course would not be seductive to men. But certain things which are impossible to cover, the religion says you don't have to cover. For example, then, because this is what Allah says, what? وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. That إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا, that part basically means that وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ, cover all the zina. I'll translate, don't worry.
I had a question. You know the niqab, is it sunnah, is it compulsory?
We'll get there. Don't worry. All of this will be discussed. We will discuss this, inshallah. So إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. So Allah says, وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ, cover the zina. Zina basically means your beauty. So the woman is commanded to cover her beauty. Now you're going to say, well, I find all of the women beautiful. Which again, for a normal heterosexual man, he will most likely find the whole woman beautiful. But then Allah says, إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. Man, they're smiling here. إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا, except that which they can't cover. That which is apparent, we can't cover that. My face, I can't cover it. Oh, how am I going to be able to walk if I have to cover my face? So the religion then says, Allah Himself says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that which is apparent, they can uncover. So the face, the hands, and the feet. Now, feet can be a turn on for some people. What are you laughing for? Is it a turn on for you?
No.
It's true. For some people have foot fetishes. Which is why one of the 2 out of the 4 madhabs, they say the woman should cover her feet. But you understand why the religion it emphasizes this? Because of, unfortunately, you could say, because of the nature of men. So now, when a woman says, "Why after?" they say, "Oh, I feel restricted when I'm covering." No, actually, it's really liberation, in the sense that, first of all, you do what Allah tells you, and that is liberation for you. It's freedom for you, because you're free from the hellfire. One thing. Not to say, sorry, just don't get me wrong here. Not to say that if you don't wear a hijab, you're going to go to the hellfire. We're not saying that. But we're saying that that zina that God has given a woman has to be covered, because it frees her from the looks of men. That's what we mean by liberation. Otherwise, there's no beauty left. If your beauty is shown, there's no beauty left. And one of the best ways to entice someone is to not show them everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody wants to just show everything, then there's nothing left. Which is why, but again, a side point, if you're chatting to some bird now and you want to get married to her, and you talk to her fully, like you do whatever you need to do, chat to her fully, everything like that, and then you get married to her, there's nothing left in the marriage. Trust me, it happens all the time. And as a counselor, and as like when I'm dealing with like a guy, and how long have you been talking? The first question I have to, okay, how long have you known each other? We've known each other for about 2 years. All right, I'm thinking like already this is going to be raps. Should I tell you why? And it's different if you marry like your childhood sweetheart or something from school. There's a whole different vibe to that, yeah. But ultimately, like, I've been talking to her for 2 years. So you've spoken about everything and anything under the sun, and then now the only thing that's left is what? The ceremony, the marriage. There's nothing exciting left for the marriage. The point is that has to be covered, that has to be hidden, that has to be like, there are certain things that can't be given away. When certain things are given away, the excitement leaves. So same thing with even the way the woman shows herself. You're following, yeah? So that, and this is just again a reminder to the brothers here, that if you are, like, say for example, courting or talking to someone now, don't let the courting period last that long. Otherwise you're going to lose all the fun. All of the maza will go to you. The only thing that will be left, if you decide to, because in this day and age it's even worse, like, we can't even say it, but if you decide to say, for example, protect yourself and protect your private parts from one another, the only thing after you've spoken to her and she's exposed herself to you, you've exposed yourself to her, and I don't mean physically, I just mean even emotionally, you've told her everything about your life, she told you everything about your life, the only thing that will be left is that one act after marriage. And once that one act is done, what's going to be left in the marriage? The spark's going to go. This is why men get bored. Yeah, men, I got 2-3 months into it, 6 months now, okay, there's a honeymoon period, you go on honeymoon, go on holiday, go Maldives, yeah, get happy, all that kind of stuff, come back, yeah, and then when life starts to kick, because There's no conversation anymore. Oh, tell me about your school life. Oh, we already spoke about it. Tell me about what you used to do back in the day. We've already spoken about it. Yeah. So this is why the courting period shouldn't be that long. Anyway, I'm digressing. So going back to the aura of the woman. So we understand now the reason for why the woman should remain covered, because she shouldn't expose her zina, her beauty, except that which is apparent. So in prayer, it's everything with the exception of the hands, the face, and the feet is disputed. The woman, according to our school of thought, can uncover the feet. Okay. Outside of prayer, this is where it depends on who she's in front of. So we're going to look at this. So we have some categories. If she's on her own, then what's the ruling for that? She's in seclusion, what's the ruling for that? What can she cover and what can she uncover? If she's in front of the husband, what's the ruling for that? In front of other Muslim women, what's the ruling for that? In front of mahram males. A mahram male is somebody that she can't marry. Can a woman marry her dad? Well, she can't, so that her father becomes a mahram to her. That's the term, by the way. If you don't know what mahram means it's haram to marry. So the father is a mahram to the woman, her father. Why? Because she can't marry her father. Can she marry her brother? No, he becomes mahram to her. Are you following? Yeah. So if everybody says, "Oh, who's mahram, who's not?" Because I'm only breaking these terms down because people sometimes don't know these terms. It's important to know these terms. And then you have non-mahram. So somebody who's technically not haram to her, who she can marry. So she can't marry her brother, she can't marry her father, for example. She can marry some next random guy on the street. Technically she could, right? Because he's not her brother and he's not her father. So that random guy on the street, you, to a woman that's not your sister or not your mother, would become a non-mahram to her. You're non-mahram. So in front of non-mahram, there's another rule. And then finally, in front of non-Muslim women, there's another rule, which we're going to look at now. So inside of prayer, I've already told you the basic rule, everything must be covered. And then there's some references here that you can see. Is there anything I missed out? No. It's essential for a woman to cover herself properly during salah, ensuring her face, hands and feet are exposed. Although feet are not considered part of the aura, it's advisable to still cover them because of a difference of opinion. We've already looked at this. Okay. Outside of prayer. Now, in seclusion and in front of her husband, the ruling is the same. A woman is allowed to, basic rule is everything can be uncovered, but only when necessary. Only when necessary. So even in front of your spouse, if you get married, right, you can see her whole body, but only actually when necessary. It can't be a case where you're constantly seeing her in that state. Again, there's a reason for that, by the way. The reason for that is that if you constantly saw her in that state, that thing would not be exciting to you anymore. That's the truth. So, do you see what I'm going from? The more you expose something to someone, the excitement goes. So even when you're married, right, that should be you should refrain from showing your whole body to your spouse for long periods of time. So one thing I would advise, for example, if you get married, if your wife's changing her clothes, you don't just have to stay there. You can't stay there, technically speaking. You can walk out of the room, right? Things like that. You see what I'm from? Because it's like it keeps that intensity, that fire, that excitement there. It's very important. It's necessary in the Hanafi school to cover one's minimum nakedness, and by the way, this applies for men and women. If you're alone, you have to cover your minimum nakedness. The minimum nakedness, at very, very least, is a navel to the knee, even for the woman. So if a woman's alone now, she can't expose her navel to knee, even to herself, unless she needs to. This principle is very important. So that's in front of the husband and in seclusion. Sorry, this has become a class, but that's the whole point. You're not coming here to listen to what about. Maybe you do, but this is important too. Women outside of prayer. Okay, in front of other women now. So the basic rule is everything can be uncovered except the navel to the knee. For a woman to another Muslim woman, she can uncover everything except the navel to the knee. So another Muslim woman can see the chest of another woman. Okay? So like some women say, oh, can we go get like a body massage? Or could we get like this, that, whatever. Technically it'll be okay as long as it's another Muslim woman. But the navel to knee has to be covered. Okay? So that's that. The ruling is there, the references are there. Then we have the next one. In front of mahram males, this is important now. This is relevant to everybody because you have sisters, you have, mothers at home, right? So this is important. So she's permitted to show her body except some parts. Okay, so the awrah of a woman in front of a mahram men, such as the father, the brother, the son, the paternal uncle and the maternal uncle, the father-in-law, the grandson, the husband's son, the son-in-law, all of these are mahram. Cousin is not your mahram, by the way. Can you marry your cousin? Some of you probably have. Why you laughing? It's not a bad thing. It's just seen as a bad thing. Yeah, your cousin, technically, there's certain body parts you can't see of her. So if your cousin's a hijabi, right, you can't be like, oh, yeah, you're my cousin though, so it's alright, you could just take your hijab off. You can't. Right? And really, you shouldn't be so lax with these things. Because ultimately, it could potentially cause issues. Now, in some families, the rule is it's less, there's more respect, etc., etc. It just depends, but the rule is the rule. Okay, now, so what can she show to her mahram males? Her head, her hair, her face, her neck, her chest. And the chest, reason for the chest, so the chest includes her bosom, basically, right? Because a woman can technically breastfeed in front of her father. That's why the chest is considered to be okay. Right? So her chest, even though that's not appropriate in culture, in some cultures it's not appropriate. Right? But the chest can be shown. Shoulders, she can show her shoulders, her hands, her forearms, and her legs from beneath the knees. So what has to be covered? What has to be covered? Navel to knee, the stomach, and the back area she can't show. To the brother or the father or the son, etc. You can't see that of your mahram females. I'm speaking to you. So your mahram females, you can't see their stomach, you can't see their back, and you can't see their navel to their knee. They're not allowed to look at it. Okay? Very, very important. Next, in front of non-mahram males. So that's any other girl now in front of you. It's the same as prayer. So technically, she has to cover everything, including with the exceptions of a hand, face, and feet. Now, how she covers, this is now the next question. Does she have to wear like a black abaya? No. As long as she's sufficiently covered and she's wearing loose, flowing clothing that doesn't attract attention. So it can't be like a stupid color that like attracts attention. So if you go to an Islamic gathering and you decide to wear like a bright red or a bright pink jubba as a female, slightly inappropriate. Slightly, because it's just females, it's fine. If you're walking out now and you're wearing bright pink and every other woman's wearing black, that would be a problem because everyone's going to look at you. The last thing you want is for people to look at you. The woman is supposed to keep eyes off her, not on her. Which is when we come to the ruling of niqab, we're going to look at that in a moment. Because with niqab, it's interesting, because if a woman's covering her face, is she being looked at more or less? Does she attract more attention, generally speaking, in this society or less? Does she attract more attention?
Question on the line.
There's a question. Can females wear loose tops with tight sleeves, or do the sleeves have to be loose as well?
Good question. So, because a woman is able to, and not able, there's a leeway for the woman, is that's a quarter of a limb. So the arm itself, the quarter of the arm, technically, if because of like our necessity, she's doing something, she reaches out for something, just about a quarter could technically be exposed, and it wouldn't be considered to be haram. The scholars say, okay, she has to wear loose clothing, but if she was to wear slightly tighter arms, it wouldn't be an issue. Now, we also have to look at where we are, and which society we're living in. So all of these rules were very dependent upon context. So if a woman had her full sleeves covered, but it was tight to her sleeve, right, that's not necessarily considered to be now a means of seduction. So that's why the ruling would be less. The scholars would be a little more, they'll be a bit more lenient on it. But the rule is the rule, and ideally they should be wearing loose all over. Hope that answers your question. So a woman can potentially wear tighter sleeves, okay, but that's the exception that she's given. Is not the normal rule. But obviously everything else has to be loose and flowing, and that is the understanding. Okay, where was I? So the type of clothing that she wears would be very, very important too. She could wear anything which is loose and flowing, as long as it's doing the job. So if she wants to wear, like in the winter, wear a very long coat, that's fine. It doesn't have to be an abaya all the time. She wants to wear a dress, that's fine. Now the same thing applies to, by the way, leggings. The same ruling of the arm would technically apply to, again, the scholars they'll turn a blind eye. I'm talking about modern contemporary scholars, not generally speaking, this is not the rule. But if a woman had a very, very long dress on, and it was all the way up to her shins, and then from her shins to her feet, she had like leggings on, that would be to some degree excused, because it's not less than a quarter of a limb. It's not more than a quarter of a limb, sorry. So that would technically be excused. However, it's not ideal. You're following, you know the rule. So the rule is that you've got a quarter of a limb, which is your arm and your legs, right? Anything more than a quarter can't be. But if a woman was to wear a very long, loose, flowing dress, okay, and then just the bottom of her legs was showing, like was jeans, not obviously her skin, but like her tighter jeans or tighter leggings, technically you would argue, or not, some contemporary scholars say, okay, we can excuse that. We can turn a blind eye to that, because again, you have to look at, the society we live in, there's a lot more implications, etc., etc. But ideally, that's not the ideal way. She has to wear loose, flowing clothing. So if a woman wants to wear joggers when she's going to the gym, first of all, women shouldn't be going to mixed gyms. And thankfully now we do have gyms where there's a women's section only. That's fine. Women should not be going to mixed gyms. Okay, and men can go to mixed gyms only because the standard is that men go to the gyms. So you can't, because of a woman, not go to the gym, because there's a benefit to the gym. However, if you happen to see obviously women there, or there will be a lot of women there at that time, you should avoid them times. So you should go at times where you're not going to find a lot of women there. That's why it's better to join a gym where there's a women's section only, which is why I like NRG, to be honest. Even though you just see it there up near there, at the end of the day, it's still they've got a women's section, so it's cool. So we're not going to see you find a random gorilla over there, whatever you're doing, I think. But again, these things are important. These rulings are important. What else is there? Any other questions in that regard?
What about for medical purposes?
Okay. Anything medical becomes a necessity, innit? So with necessities, there are exceptions. So, like for example, there's a ruling that, again, contemporary scholars again ruling on women that are like working in the professional sort of field, like a dental or medical field. They have to wear scrubs. And with scrubs, you can't, there's some of the arm will be exposed, so that quarter rule would be applied. So a woman could show her forearms, and that's about it. Even though, again, that's the exception to the rule, and that's not the ideal. Ideally, the woman should cover. But if she was to uncover a little bit of her forearms, that's, again, turned a blind eye to, according to the contemporary scholars. Again, we're looking at times and places we're living. There's a longer and larger discussion on haya and what it actually means and what it entails. And this is the last thing I'll mention, then inshallah. So there's a whole discussion on what haya, modesty is. Yeah, because one could argue, because haya is not just about the clothing alone, and this is really important to note now. What's more modest? I'm going to ask you as guys, yeah? So you guys give me a genuine answer. What if you've got two women in front of you, yeah? You've got a woman who's wearing a hijab, scarf, but she's wearing really tight clothes underneath. But then you've got a woman who's wearing loose clothing, she's wearing loose clothing, but her hair's out. What do you consider more modest?
Would it be the last
Loose clothing and hair.
loose clothing?
So her hair, but she's wearing loose clothing, yeah? As opposed to a woman who's got hijab and she's wearing really tight clothing. See, this is where there's a huge question mark, and it's a problem because it's become so confusing. Because haya, true modesty, is not just about the clothing alone. Yeah? And arguably, you could say when it comes to modesty, the woman who's got her hair out and is wearing loose clothing is more modest. She's dressed more modestly. However, still, she's not fulfilling the obligation of covering. Now, the other one is fulfilling the obligation of covering, but there's no modesty there. So what has to happen is there has to be modesty as well as fulfilling the obligation. Both have to be there. It's like both ingredients have to be there. If one is devoid of the other, or if there's one and the other is not there, then you're not doing something sufficiently.
So are they equally as bad then?
Arguably, yeah. Because one has a lack of haya to some degree, like she lacks modesty, yet at the same time, she's still fulfilled the obligation technically, in the sense that she's wearing a hijab. Everything else is covered, but it's covered in a very bad way. It's covered as in like it's just, like you can see all of her beauty, basically her assets. Whereas the other one, she's obviously not. She's shown haya, she's shown modesty, but at the same time she's not actually fulfilled the obligation. So again, and I'll put a disclaimer out here again, when it comes to our judgment on these type of people, these women that dress like this, we need to reserve judgment, because it's not for us to judge in that regard. On the apparent, we can say Amar bil ma'ruf wa nahy 'anil munkar. So the command is to enjoy the good and forbid the evil. So if we have any authority over that person, only then we can make a comment on it. If you don't have authority over that person, or that person does not see you as an authority, remain silent and make dua for that person. So you can't walk, you get these weird random guys, yeah, in uni and stuff like that, on campuses, or not even uni and campuses, just aside from just general people walk around the street sometimes, and they'll see a woman like, "Astaghfirullah, sister, you should do this." Who the heck are you? That's exactly what they're going to say, innit? Now, even though what he's saying is correct, right? This is where we have to understand there's lack of wisdom. You can't just go around saying, "Oh, sister, you need to cover, you need to do." There's no, you hold no authority in that woman's eyes. So why is she going to listen to you in the first place? And technically, if you're telling us something about Islam, you could potentially be putting her off Islam, because she's going to be like, "Oh, these religious guys are like this."
Someone said, "I know hijab is fard, but is there any evidence?"
Yeah, the Quran. So there's an article I shared a couple of weeks ago on my Instagram by a friend. Well, I don't know him like that, but he's a friend of a friend. His name is Shaykh Samir from Canada. Usuli. So if you put in usuli.com, I think. I'll reshare it. We'll get it shared on Imdadiyyah after the Burda ends. So he's obviously written a really good article. It's worth a read about this whole topic of where it's mentioned in the Quran. But in the Quran, hijab, right, in the context of us understanding hijab, is not mentioned like that. Hijab literally means to cover. Allah speaks about hijab in Surah Al-A'raf, but that's a different covering. وَبَيْنَهُمَا حِجَابٌ وَعَلَى الْأَعْرَافِ رِجَالٌ يَعْرِفُونَهُمْ كُلًّا بِسِيمَاهُمْ. Yeah? That's a different type of hijab. When Allah speaks about the head cover, in the Quran, the term is khumur. So Allah says, وَلْيَضْرِبْنَا بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. Okay? So the term is khumur, it's a different term. Again, important note, because a lot of people do say, it's not mentioned in the Quran. It's because, you haven't really understood the Quran. The Quran doesn't have to use the language that you understand. It uses its own language. You've got to go to the Quran and trying to understand its language, not for the Quran to conform to your language. So it's a very important point. Good question though. Right.
Quick.
Go ahead.
Because of them two examples are quite common. Which would you say one's slightly worse than the other?
Well, so the example I gave about
dress and the hair, yeah.
I think I don't know, wallahu alam, I can't make the judgment on that, but I feel like because haya itself, modesty, is more of an overwhelming and more of an important concept than the hijab itself. The hijab is a specific, whereas modesty is more than that. So one could argue potentially again, I don't want to make a definitive judgment on it, but my perspective on this would be, my personal perspective is, the woman that uncovers her hair and wears loose clothing beneath, clearly showing modest clothing, would probably fare off better than a woman who's got a hijab and is wearing tight clothes underneath. But that's not, I'm not saying that this is the rule, this is the religion, so this is just my personal view. Like, I would respect, like, I don't know about you, but I would respect that woman more than the woman who's wearing a hijab and wearing really tight clothes underneath. Because to some degree, I think she's making a mockery of the hijab, okay, and that's a problem. So, but technically, from a legal standpoint, both are as bad as each other, you could argue, because we've proved why. So, right, let's quickly finish off, then inshallah we'll think. So, from then Mohammed, we've done that. So there's a long discussion on this. In Tanweer al-Absar, it says that a woman's awrah consists of a whole body except her face, hands and feet. However, she will be prevented from exposing the face in amongst men due to the fear of temptation. Now, the niqab, this is not like niqab now. So this is a discussion, Jamal, this is for you, yeah? So this is a discussion on niqab now. If there is a fear of temptation, i.e. you know that a lot of men are going to look at you, your face, etc., and it's going to be a reason for them to try and approach you, etc., etc., then that woman should be wearing the niqab. Okay, that's the general rule. However, there is a nuance here. Contemporary scholars will tell you, modern day scholars will tell you, in modern day, the whole purpose of wearing or covering yourself, generally speaking, is for you to detract attention, not attract attention. So I ask you the question, if a woman is wearing a niqab, depending on the society you're living in, where you are, if you're in the middle of Bradford and she's wearing a niqab, really nobody's going to be looking at her like that. Because it's Bradford, everybody understands, okay, that's the thing. And with all due respect, I have a lot of respect for women who cover their faces because of that. And so the niqab really ideally should be worn if a woman feels temptation. However, in a place where the niqab is going to attract more attention, like say for example you're among a lot of non-Muslims who don't really understand the importance of it or don't really get it, and most likely they're going to look at you like, what the heck. It's advised that a woman doesn't wear niqab and sticks the hijab. That's the ruling on it, ultimately. Like in Pakistan, for example, like in Pakistan, in these places, the niqab, like our women generally do. When they go out, they cover their faces. I don't know if you guys see, but they'll cover their faces because that's a norm there. Women shouldn't really be showing their faces. It's completely fine there. In fact, it would be considered to be wajib there because it's understood, it's accepted. It's not a reason for people to be looking at a person, whoa, that's weird. But if you're in the middle of Brighton, yeah, and then you decide to go, even in fact, if you're in the middle of Brighton, you're wearing a hijab, even then you're going to be looked at to some degree. They're like, oh, that's weird. However, with that, there's no compromise because that's a rule of the Quran. The niqab is not considered to be fard according to the core texts. The niqab was considered to be necessary according to the juristic opinion afterwards. So therefore, you can't go into the middle of Brighton and say, I'm going to take my hijab off as well because I don't want people to look at me, because that you can't compromise that principle. However, if you're in the middle of like an area which is full of non-Muslims and you're going to wear a niqab, most likely they're going to look at you. They're going to be like, what's going on here? It's going to attract attention. And again, the purpose of these things is not to attract attention, but to detract attention. So Jamal, you followed me, yeah? So again, I would probably say that in this day and age in the UK, generally speaking, it's probably better that a woman just wears the hijab and not the niqab. However, if you're in a place in society where the niqab is completely seen to be fine and normal, like in a very populated Muslim society, then niqab would be recommended in that case. Wallahu a'lam. Yeah, go on.
In public, you said there's a leeway for the 1/4 of the limb showing.
No, it's not a leeway.
No. Just saying.
Okay. Are you reading the question?
Yeah.
Are you understanding their question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand. And she goes, is it the same for salah?
No, well, yeah. In the sense that, like if you go down in sajda for salah, a woman goes down in sajda, she might like put her hands down and some of the forearm would become slightly exposed. Yeah, there's that leeway is given there too. So it's not the ideal one.
The salah's not broken.
Salah's not broken. However, she has to immediately cover. So these are like small discussions, like if a woman goes down in sajda, for example, she might go down and a sleeve might come up slightly, right? If a sleeve comes up slightly, then she has to immediately cover it. If the sleeve came up slightly and it stayed there for longer than in the 3 tasbihat, then that's where there's a problem. So she has to cover it again, but that bit would be considered to be okay. Whereas if a woman's main aura was exposed, then of course the salah would break. It's like that. Wallahu a'lam. And Allah knows best. Alright.
I've got a question. For male owners.
Go on.
You know, let's say, you know those uncles that come read namaz, the chairs are half down.
Yeah, and then the backs are showing when
Yeah.
they do sajda. Why blame the uncles?
I'm just saying, just generally, anyone,
Yeah.
is their namaz broken?
If again it's that if it's for longer than 3 tasbihat, the salah is broken. But you have to have again when telling someone, there has to be a sense of like you have to, it has to be done with wisdom.
Should you tell someone?
This is the thing, and it depends. So should you tell someone? So if you don't know the guy, random guy, and he's got his back exposed, and you go to him, yo bro, like, you know, that was showing, he might get offended. You don't know what people are like what the heck are you telling? Some people will appreciate it. As will like, oh no, thank you, they'll repeat the prayer. The one thing you don't do is you tell them and say you have to repeat your prayer is broken or something like that, because then they'll most likely be like, who the heck are you? As soon as you give like a ruling to someone, unless you're an authority, they ain't gonna take it. So you can just let him know, brother, you know, when you're doing sajda, your back was exposed, that will be fine. But then again, it depends on the situation and who you are and who you're talking to and what type of person it is. And if you feel like he's going to snap back at you, then there's no point. You just leave it to him and say, Ya Allah, please accept his salam. You make dua for him. Inshallah. Go on.
Someone asked any tips for someone that wants to start wearing hijab.
To encourage them to start wearing.
To encourage them, obviously, I mean, a lot of this comes down to like mental preparation and understanding why you're doing something. And it's really like sitting down deeply, understanding why I want to do this and why I want to take the step and what reward I will receive. And ultimately, it's about not caring about what people are going to say, what people are going to, you know, because a lot of women will struggle wearing the hijab because they're worried about what people are going to say, you know, and it's about trying to like put those things to a side and be like, okay, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah and the sake of Allah only. And it's that mental preparation more than anything. Well, my advice, of course, would be take your time with that mental preparation, but the wujub, the obligation is still on your head, so you try to do it as soon as possible, Allah knows best.
You know,
Question.
I saw something the other day on TikTok where there was a young child, like a baby, and their parents obviously dressed them in the full hijab and everything. Is that considered like forcing them to wear it, or is it just like, I don't know?
I mean, it's a baby, it's just cute in it,
yeah,
like, but
there was a lot of debate in the question, in comments about it, whether it's allowed to do that or not.
no, it's perfectly fine. It's just like it's your child. You choose what you want to dress them, you know, as. There's no issue with that. In fact, like forcing obligations upon children is not an issue. It just can't be done with force. With force, that makes sense. It can't be done with like angle, you know, hitting and things like that. Like the hadith mentions how the father should be reprimanding his child to pray. So even to the point where you can actually strike him, as long as then the striking has a condition, and you can't strike them where you leave a mark, and the striking can't be on the face. But there is that. And people will say, but la ikraha fi deen. And the ayah of the Quran is what? La ikraha fi deen. There is no compulsion in the religion. This has not got to do with things within the religion. There is no compulsion. We don't force anyone to accept the religion. That's a different thing. So matters within the religion, there can be compulsion. A king can say to his subject, the qadi can force a particular ruling on a couple. That force does exist. A qadi is a judge, by the Islamic judge can rule and decree something. There is a force within the religion. You can force, if you are an authority above someone, so you're a father to a son, you can force your child to do certain things. There's nothing wrong with that type of force. when people quote the ayah la ikraha fi din, that means you can't force someone to accept Islam. There's a difference there. So that's that. Okay, let's have a conclude. We're walking out like what the heck.
Can I ask this last question?
Go on, give me. Let's do three more questions, and inshallah we'll conclude.
If a woman wears a short sleeve t-shirt and then she covers herself with a big shawl and then she prays, is that allowed?
That's fine, as long as the covering is done. So on the apparel, she's covered. Like for example, the same ruling applies to a guy or a girl who's sleeping without any clothes on. Okay, as long as they're covered with the duvet, the kambal, whatever you want to call it, then the blanket, that will be permissible.
How to advise someone who says, I wear hijab when I'm ready with wisdom?
Say again?
How to advise someone who says, I wear hijab when I'm ready?
Just, I mean, like, your obligation is amar bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. That basically means your obligation is to command the good and forbid the evil. And then you follow what the prophets did, because the prophets then said in the end, وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. So I'm going to convey my message, and after that, it's up to you. So your wisdom basically means that you intermittently tell them. When it comes to advising anyone, your job is to advise, and once you've advised, you've done your bit. This is why, the Prophet would say, وَمَا, and this is Surah Yasin, وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. So it's not upon me to do anything except just to give you the message. So when it comes to advising people, wisdom basically dictates the fact that you tell them in a time where it's easily digestible for them, but once you've said what you needed to say, you leave it to them. And then you remind them again where you feel like it's best to remind them. So if a woman says, look, I'll wear the hijab, let me take my time, I'll do it when I'm ready, you remind them. After that, you let them take the time, and then eventually there will come a point where you'll remind them again. But that when you decide to remind them again, it's not like after a week, or after 2 weeks, that depends on your relationship with them. That's what wisdom means. So wisdom means applying the knowledge according to the context that you're in. That's what it is. So when it comes to women who say like, oh, let me take my time, or don't worry, I'll wear it when I'm ready, for you have to understand, and you're trying to advise that person, you advise them intermittently, without aggravating them, because when you aggravate them, they're going to move away from you. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If the Prophet ﷺ was harsh with his companions, they would have all moved away. Allah Ta'ala says, but of course he wasn't.
It's 2 questions. One was, can you wear shorts when you wear jubba?
Yes, you can. You can wear boxers. You can go commando under your jubba, as long as you're covered in it. So the apparent is fine. If you're covered in your apparent, it's fine. In the summer, I sometimes do wear just shorts under my jubba, or even boxers under my jubba. Are there any questions here?
No, just one quick one, yeah?
Go on.
You know the headscarf,
Yeah.
if they do it like a turban style and the back of the neck's showing, is that fine?
The turban style, as long as it doesn't replicate a Sikh, technically the turban style scarf would be fine.
As in like, the women...
Yeah, which is
you know what
fine.
I'm saying, yeah?
Turban style is fine, but the back of the neck can't be showing. So if it's a turban scarf, yeah, they've got another scarf covering their neck, that would be fine. But the turban scarf where it replicates, say for example, a Sikh, that wouldn't be permissible. And then of course the other parts will be covered. Allah.